Hello everyone, thank you so much for clicking on today's video and welcome to my channel. This story is definitely very messy, not just in terms of what exactly happened, but also in terms of the relationships that are happening here. That's all I'm going to say without giving too much away. I do hope that you enjoyed this story. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. Anyhow, onto the story. This might not seem like a big deal to most people reading, but it's become a big deal for me and my fiancé. So when I was 14, I became best friends with a girl. Let's call her Gwen. When we were 16, we started dating. We spent all of our time together. Basic teenage love stuff. During this time, I became close with her little sister Vicky, who was 13. Vicky and I were always friendly with one another, some teasing, some fighting, but general kids being kids. So Gwen and I dated for 4 years and ended up breaking up when we were in college because we wanted different things in life. I was fine with having only Gwen as my partner for life, and Gwen felt like she'd been missing out on her quote-unquote girls just want to have fun days. This was obviously a pretty rough time for me, for Gwen, and for our whole friend group. The relationship was basically a corpse for several months, dragged along by our unwillingness to let each other go. She proposed an open relationship several times, and I just couldn't bring myself to agree with it. During this time, Vicky got pretty angry with her sister Gwen because Vicky, by that point, saw me as part of the family. I found out later that Vicky and Gwen got into regular fights about Gwen's inability to commit to me. At the time, Vicky was 17 years old and Gwen was 20, so it's not like Vicky could really force Gwen to do anything. Eventually, Gwen and I broke up, and our 4-year relationship and 6-year friendship came to an end. I felt like the right thing to do was probably distance myself from Vicky as well, because being as close to Vicky as I usually was would mean that I'd never quite leave Gwen's life. This ended up backfiring because it made Vicky very upset, and she basically interpreted this to mean that Vicky and I were never really friends, and I was only tolerating her for Gwen's sake. Out of guilt, or out of some selfish desire to not lose yet another piece of my life, I acquiesced to Vicky and we stayed friends. This was in 2014. By 2015, Vicky was 18 and I was 21. She came to the same college as I was in, and we were good friends. I always kept some distance with Vicky out of respect for Gwen. This means that no matter how friendly I was with Vicky, I never really talked to her about personal stuff or my romantic life. She was a good friend, but not a quote-unquote close friend. Then, in late 2015, there was an incident where Vicky behaved extremely jealous towards a girl that I was casually seeing. There was another incident in early 2016 where Vicky was found to be shit-talking a different girl I was seeing. And when I confronted Vicky about it, she basically confessed that she had developed feelings for me. I shut that down immediately because every part of it felt totally and viscerally wrong. But at the time, Vicky assured me that Gwen was okay with it and that her mom was okay with it too. She puts all her cards on the table and says that while she understands that I view her as a kid, she'd like the chance to at least date me and change my mind. Obviously, she succeeded, because as of February this year, she and I are engaged. We've been together for 5 years now, and it's by far the best relationship I've ever been in. The only problem is that it turns out that Vicky lied about one thing at the start of our relationship. While it's true that her mother loved me and was totally fine with Vicky dating me, Gwen was never ever okay with this. In fact, Gwen was very much not okay with it and had been vocal about this to Vicky. Gwen never said any of this to me because she and I were no contact. All of this is coming up now in 2020 because Gwen is over at our apartment for the week, and on day 2, yesterday, she gets drunk and blurts out how I quote-unquote upgraded to a younger, prettier model by dating her little sister. Vicky was already passed out by this point, so she has no idea that Gwen said these things to me. But at the time I got defensive and said that Gwen was okay with it at the time, so why does it bother her so much half a decade later? Then Gwen told me the truth about how she was never okay with it, but then found out that I had agreed to give Vicky a chance and it broke her heart, and she tried to quote-unquote let go of the jealousy she was feeling. Now, 5 years later, she still feels intense pangs of jealousy, all made worse by the wedding planning for our 2021 marriage. Gwen says that she regrets asking me for a breakup and the single life wasn't worth losing love for. She assured me that she wasn't trying to break Vicky and myself up or trying to get me back. She said that she just needed me to know how she was feeling. She also attributes these feelings of rejection and loss as the cause of her depression, which incidentally has derailed her life for the past 4 years. So the time matches up, I guess. What's the right move here? Do I tell Vicky about Gwen's confession? Do I pretend like I didn't hear any of this? OP then added some minor updates. Gwen doesn't seem to remember what she said, or is playing it off like she didn't confess anything. I'm going to talk to my fiancé and let her know what happened. And I'm not going to turn this into any more drama or a big fight. Before I posted the last thread, I was going to just let this whole thing die off and never speak to Vicky about it. But the majority of you felt it was best to at least be honest to Vicky, and at some point you all convinced me. So yesterday morning, I sat Vicky down and I told her what had happened. Gwen was away at this point, so I had the privacy for a real conversation. A lot of people in the last post really mistook what kind of person Vicky is. In my opinion, Vicky isn't some kind of evil mastermind that was playing me, her mother, her sister, and everyone else like some puppets dancing on her strings. When I met her, she was an earnest kid, and she grew to be an honest but determined teenager at the time that we started dating. I mention this so that people understand that this conversation wasn't an interrogation. I just wanted to know what she thought about what Gwen said. As it turns out, the truth is always somewhere in between, and I've learned a lot of new information. I just let her speak and get everything off of her chest. I didn't interrupt her to ask for clarifications or interject to argue at any point. The way I'm going to write this down is probably annoying to read, but it's the way that I process them. New is totally new information. Confirmed is information that Gwen told me that Vicky confirmed, and messy is information that Gwen told me that wasn't fully honest. New. Vicky's been in love with me for longer than I thought. Gwen and I were planning on taking her to the carnival in town on her 14th birthday, along with her group of friends. But Gwen got sick and Vicky was starting to get sick, so they figured the whole plan was cancelled. I don't remember much of this event, but she remembers that I cheered her up and convinced her to go to the carnival. So it was me, Vicky, and Vicky's friends. And when Vicky would get tired or need to sit down and rehydrate, I'd sit with her. She remembers that one of her friends was flirting with me and at one point gave me a compliment, and I redirected the compliment to Vicky, and it made Vicky feel like $1,000,000. She says that this was the night that she fell in love with me. Confirmed. Gwen suspected Vicky, number 1. I used to shower at Gwen's house once in a while, especially during summer vacation. This only used to happen after pickup games if Gwen wanted to hang out afterwards. I'd leave dirty laundry here for Gwen to throw into the wash. Turns out, Vicky started helping her later on, and Gwen noticed that Vicky only helped her when my dirty clothes were in the hamper. Never on a normal day. Confirmed. Gwen suspected Vicky, number 2. Senior year of high school, I took art history. I didn't care about the class, but Vicky was super interested in hearing from me about it. Turns out, Gwen caught Vicky researching my class topic several times so that Vicky could hold conversations with me. Confirmed. Gwen suspected Vicky, number 3. Gwen knew that Vicky would put on makeup and tidy herself up every time that I came to visit Gwen. Even if I'm just picking Gwen up to take her out, Vicky'd come downstairs with makeup on to chat with me for a bit before I left. I didn't mention to Vicky that I didn't notice at all. Messy. Gwen opposed Vicky's feelings, but then came around. So Vicky told Gwen earnestly about her feelings for me before she even told her mom. This was 6 months after Gwen's and my relationship had ended. Gwen got pretty heated about this, And a week after Vicky told Gwen, there was an incident between the sisters where Gwen basically chewed Vicky out. Gwen told Vicky that I'd never fall for Vicky. This was when Vicky basically called out Gwen and said that Gwen couldn't ever be happy for me. In this conversation, Gwen explicitly said that if I, quote-unquote, by some miracle, said yes to Vicky, then Gwen would put her tail between her legs and admit that she was wrong. Gwen later, about 1 month-ish, apologized about how she spoke to Vicky and said that if Vicky truly loved me, she was happy for Vicky. Messy. Gwen encouraged Vicky to confess to me. The next big episode regarding me came the month that Vicky confessed to me. Vicky and I were in a fight because I didn't like how she had behaved to a girl that I was friends with benefits with. Vicky was crying at home and Gwen basically encouraged Vicky to quote-unquote rip the band-aid off and tell me how she feels. This way, if I rejected Vicky, Vicky could at least move on. Vicky asked Gwen if that was really okay and Gwen said yes. Messy. Gwen was happy and scared when Vicky was about to confess. In a conversation the evening that Vicky was going to tell me her feelings, Vicky and Gwen spoke again over the phone. Vicky remembered that Gwen made a very iffy joke that suggested Gwen was hurting. Vicky paused the conversation and asked Gwen if she was really okay with this. Gwen backpedaled and insisted that it was just a joke, and said that she was excited for her little sister. Vicky remembers the joke comment being something like, "Good luck getting the love of my life." So that's it. The truth is more complicated, I guess. It turns out that Vicky had feelings for me a long time ago. Things like quote-unquote falling in love with me for taking her to a carnival on her birthday seems dramatic and immature in retrospect, but it's important bits that make up a bigger truth. Also, it turns out that Gwen had small nagging suspicions over the years, but most important is that it turns out that I was single and Vicky was working up the courage to make a move, and Gwen wasn't actually in opposition. Gwen ended up being a good sister and encouraging Vicky to chase what she wants. What further complicates things is that Gwen used to express some insecurity around her body and how much more beautiful, read, right curves, Vicky was. Back during the last 2 years of us dating, I dismissed these insecurities and I used to laugh them off because at the time Gwen was 18 and Vicky was 15. How does an 18-year-old even compare herself to a 15-year-old? I didn't know that there was this underlying sentiment of competition over the years. To spend years feeling jealous of your little sister must have been torture. This was the least dramatic way I could think to resolve this. Since Gwen, either deceitfully or genuinely doesn't remember any of her confessions to me, I'm going to let sleeping dogs lie, I think. Vicky's perfect, and I wish I could go back in time and take away the heartache she must have felt over the years as some insecure kid not knowing if I'd ever love her or not. I'm posting this update partly to organize my thoughts, but also in case anyone feels strongly that I should talk to Gwen. I believe letting this rest and not poking it anymore is the best option. Do you agree or disagree? So guys, what did you think about this? Didn't I tell you it was extraordinarily messy? It's been 2 years since OP's update and they haven't really posted anything afterwards, so I think that he never really brought it up with Gwen again. I don't want to be too judgmental here, but I don't think that I would ever date my ex's sibling. Oh my god, especially somebody who I grew up with. That being said, I'm happy for OP and his fiancée. I hope that they have a wonderful wedding and that they have a very happy life. And lastly, I do hope that you enjoyed this story. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories from Reddit with updates.